Hi, you're listening to The Sociology Show, a podcast about absolutely anything to do with the wonderful world of sociology. Whether you're a teacher, a lecturer, a student, or just taking a passing interest, this podcast will look at a range of issues from social class, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, religion, crime, education, and anything else that sociology has to offer. My name is Matthew Wilkin, and each episode I will speak to someone working in the field of sociology and let them explain all about their own interests, their research, and their experiences. So, put your earphones in, turn the volume up, and let's be sociology geeks together, eh? Hi, thank you very much for coming on to the Sociology Show podcast. Would you like to start by telling us who you are and a little bit about yourself, please?
So my name is Shaley. I reside in Florida in the United States. I am a student currently pursuing my degree in criminal justice and a minor in psychology.
Thank you, Shaley. And you got in touch with me. You sent me an email yesterday, which really kind of piqued my interest. Do you want to say a little bit about why you got in touch with the show and why you wanted to contact myself?
Yes, I've been listening to your podcast recently, and what caught my attention was, and the reason why I reached out was because I am a victim of domestic violence, where I experienced multiple stab wounds from a former girlfriend of mine who's now incarcerated, and I wanted to reach out to you to speak on the experience and speak on the mental health aspect part of it and, other parts of the struggles when it comes to stuff like this.
Thank you. And I appreciate it's a very sensitive area. So if there's anything you don't want to disclose or you feel uncomfortable talking about, then obviously do let me know as we go through the questions. So do you mind telling us right from the start about the early part of the relationship and how it escalated going into what you've just described?
Just like any relationship, really, you have an attraction to anybody that you're interested in dating, right? And, I didn't see any abnormal signs or anything in the beginning of our relationship. We were together almost 3 years. And the first 2 years were okay. They were good. But I started noticing a change in behavior towards the second year, towards the end of the second year. That's when I noticed a change in behavior. I felt trapped. I didn't know what to do. It was a tough situation to be in.
And when you say trapped, do you mean in terms of there was a certain amount of restrictions in terms of what she's saying you could do, where you could go, who you could see? Is that what you mean by feeling trapped?
No, not necessarily. I felt trapped in a sense that we lived together. This was our first time moving in together. We already were in a serious relationship, 2 years in, and, then the physical and verbal and mental abuse was already happening towards the second year. And I just never experienced a relationship like this ever in my life, where that's how I felt trapped. I didn't know how to kind of navigate this tough situation or who to turn to.
Sure. And I mean, did it start? I'm always interested in how these things escalate, because was there a significant point where it kind of sparked or kicked off, or did it start with the verbal and escalate from there?
Honestly, I don't remember. I think it was just a combination of things. I think it was a combination of verbal and physical at the same time. I just don't remember what happened first. But I do remember there was more physical than verbal, for sure. And I just didn't know how to handle situations like that, or, being in such a toxic, abusive relationship. I just felt alone. I honestly, I didn't notice until after the fact of the relationship that I was out of it, that I had a clearer state of mind where I was thinking things and observing it from an outside perspective after I was out of the relationship, realizing that, these are the red flags that I didn't notice when I was in there, because when you're in a toxic relationship, you don't know exactly, you don't pay attention to these red flags. And I think it's because I actually loved this person. I was in love with this person, Love is blind, put it that way.
Yeah. And you just mentioned red flags. I mean, if this isn't a sensitive question, was there any indication in the first couple of years? Was there any sort of points that you thought this could be a little bit more explosive, or that was within the person themselves?
Yeah. So now that I'm out of the relationship and I had the time to actually think of things through and a little bit more clearer, I realized that she did give some red flags in the beginning of our relationship in the first 6 months that we were dating. She was very aggressive and, she was instantly reacting in a fighting response with other people around that I didn't really pick up on when we were dating.
Mm. I was interested you said your first kind of feeling about feeling alone. I mean, what people would say is obviously, speak out, speak up, speak to other people, speak to friends, speak to family. Did that feel a very difficult thing to do?
Yes, it did because, this person is also someone that has been around my family for some time now, for years. And, I felt ashamed that my relationship had turned to that point where, I was dating someone who was abusive towards me. Uh, I didn't really know how to approach such a sensitive topic to my family or close friends. And I don't think even if I opened up to my family or friends, I don't think they would know how to handle it. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Mm.
But I didn't do it.
I'm going to ask you another, I guess it's quite a personal question, but having heard other people's experience of domestic violence, quite often people have pinned a certain amount of blame on themselves. They get quite introspective. What have I done? But was that the same for you, Shaley?
To be honest, when I was in the relationship, I always took the blame, even though I knew deep down it wasn't my fault.
Mm.
But I took the blame because I was like, I'm just not in a fighting mood. I don't want to fight. So I'm just gonna, just take the blame, even though I know it's not my fault, even though I know the type of partner and the qualities that I can provide in a relationship, that I'm not doing anything wrong. And, even if I do something wrong in a relationship, I'm always that person to take accountability of my mistakes and correct them.
Yeah.
An instance, I mean, this relationship, she was never one to take accountability of her own mistakes and always pointed the fingers. And I realized she was doing a lot of projection, and that's not okay. And that tends to happen in a lot of relationships that are abusive.
Yeah. Are you happy to talk about how it escalated? Because in your email, you did disclose to me what ultimately happened. Do you mind talking about it a little bit more?
I honestly don't know the reason why it happened, to be honest. This all happened, it all caught me by surprise. Um, but we were in our home and she randomly just, well, it caught me by surprise. She grabbed the biggest butcher knife in our kitchen and stabbed me multiple times, to the point where I lost a lot of blood and my intestines came out of my stomach. I was pretty much dying, but I survived and I'm here to share my story.
I mean, thank you for sharing the story because it's absolutely horrific. I can't even begin to imagine your feelings and emotions at that time. I mean, well, I'm not even sure where to start. How did you feel at the time? And it must have even felt like almost an out of body experience. What was going on then?
For sure. I mean, I felt for a brief moment I died and then came back. Like I was in and out of consciousness. I don't remember much, but I did need some intense surgery. And now to this day, I don't have feeling on the areas that I was stabbed in my body. So after the whole stabbing, my mobility has been impaired for sure. That has been a struggle to accept because the person that I once was very strong, very independent, very athletic. I did Spartan runs. I did 5K runs. I would do anything to, stay in physical athletic shape. And now I can't do that. So it's like I'm a completely different person. And, when people go through these struggles, you have to understand that the way that I view it is you just have to I felt like I was a flower that died that night, and then I blossomed into another flower. If that kind of makes sense.
But that's amazing that you can say you feel that you've blossomed since that, because like you said, that's life changing. You could have died that day. You quite easily could have died that day.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think? And again, please feel free not to answer any questions if you don't want to. Do you think that was always coming? Do you think things have been escalating, and ultimately that was always on the cards? There was a certain amount of destiny that was leading to that at some point.
That I was gonna face near death. Yeah, I mean, when the abuse was getting really bad, in my mind, it was I was constantly thinking. I was like, I'm afraid that it's just gonna reach its breaking point, and there's gonna be no point of return, or like I wouldn't know how to handle it. And I mean, in my mind, I was just trying to figure out what is, the best way to like leave the relationship amicably, in peace, without arguing, without the physical abuse. But I don't know. I felt like I didn't have. It caught me off guard, and when I was planning it, I mean, this happened, but I didn't tell her I was leaving. I was just, these are just my thoughts to myself. I was just talking to myself, trying to figure out a plan for myself. And all of a sudden, this happened.
Before we go into the sort of effects from that, is what happened from that point onwards? Was she immediately arrested? Obviously, you're taken to hospital. What happened?
Oh yeah, she was immediately arrested. Yeah, and I was taken to the hospital. I needed surgery, and I was in ICU for a while. And then after they took me out of ICU, I almost had a heart attack because I lost a lot of blood, so I needed a blood transfusion. It took about 6 hours for the blood transfusion.
Yeah.
6 to 8 hours, approximately.
This might be a strange question as well, but from that moment on, have you ever spoken to her again?
Oh no, and I will never speak to her. I have. As soon as that whole incident happened, my attorneys filed a restraining order for life. So I have no intentions of communicating with this person.
Understandably. So obviously building yourself back up after that event, you said that there's obviously a huge amount physically, emotionally.
Well, yeah,
as well.
physically, yeah, physically, emotionally, and mentally. Yeah.
So my question is, how, Shaley, how do you come back from such an event?
It was a struggle. It was a struggle. I didn't know what direction or what options to take. I mean, I had my therapist, my psychologist, to help me. And I feel like that was going to therapy was tremendously helpful because that Till this day, I still go to therapy to heal from this situation. But in the beginning, it was a struggle to understand the whole situation and why did it happen to me, like why did it happen and why am I suffering? I had to, I journaled a lot. I journaled a lot to myself. I journaled a lot to her as a way to release what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling, even though I know they would never read it and I have no intentions of them reading, what I write. But it's therapeutic for me in order for me to rebuild myself back up and heal from such a traumatic situation.
And how long are we talking since that event, Shaley? How long ago was that?
It happened 2 years ago. Yeah, it happened 2 years ago in 2020.
And as part of the healing process, I'm interested. Have you learned to trust again, to love again? Could you be in a relationship again? I don't know if you are.
To be honest with you, that's something that I didn't. That it crossed my mind. I would think about I would never be able to trust anybody. I don't know how I'm going to be able to trust anybody. I'm diagnosed with PTSD because of this whole situation. So, I mean, yeah, I do have. It does cross my mind when I do date someone. I feel like if I were to ever date someone, I'm definitely gonna have my guard up, but I'm gonna protect myself and pay attention to things a little bit more thoroughly and not just ignore any kind of red flags given in the beginning of dating someone. Like now I'm gonna be more cautious with things and take my time and not rush into things or just for my own good. I don't think this whole situation should stop me from dating because, again, I mean, anybody who goes through anything traumatic in an abusive relationship shouldn't hold themselves back from being happy again. And I feel like, I deserve to be happy. And I want to make myself happy. So, if I am given the opportunity to have another relationship, I'm definitely going to take my time and, put myself first, because I don't think I really put myself first when it came to this previous toxic relationship.
That's amazing to hear. And yet you even used the word blossom. So I'm intrigued. At what sort of point are you at the moment? Physically, you said obviously there's still ongoing issues, PTSD. Do you mind discussing where you are physically, emotionally at the moment, 2 years on?
I mean, physically, I mean, after the whole incident, I couldn't walk for a year. I had to retrain myself how to walk with physical therapy. And also I had to go to occupational therapy to retrain my hand to use it again. But I mean, at this point in my life, I feel like I wouldn't say I'm stronger, but I'm at a point where I'm able to, because in the beginning I wasn't able to talk about this situation and without breaking down and crying,
Yeah.
I feel more confident and I feel a part of me is on that journey of healing. I feel mentally I am okay sometimes. And then sometimes I have to, just let myself know, like, it's okay not to have good days, but, not allow those bad days when I'm not feeling good mentally to get the best of me, but I feel now I'm in a place where I'm doing things for myself. After the whole situation happened, I went back to school to pursue my degree in criminal justice. I want to finish and earn my degree, and I want to help others. I want to become an advocate, a voice for other people who feel they have no voice or feel ashamed to talk about something so traumatic, or they feel like gonna be they're gonna have people who are just gonna tell them, well, why don't you leave, like when you're in an abusive relationship, people always say, why don't you leave, it's your fault for saying no. It's you can't. And this is where the sociology comes in, where people always point fingers, people always say something based off of what other people say, you know what I mean? And if you're not in a situation like abusive, you can't relate all, all you need to do is just listen and not give your opinions or belittle the person who's being abused, because all it's going to do is just tear that person down.
Well, I can't think of anyone better that people could get advice from than yourself, Shaley, to be honest. And I suppose that would kind of be my final question. If there is someone listening to this podcast that is going through perhaps not even as extreme level as you've experienced, but they are suffering some form of abuse, what's your overriding advice?
My advice would definitely be to love yourself first, and always think about yourself first and your life first, and always just come up with a plan and plan to leave the relationship, even if it means without communicating and letting them know. Don't give suspicions. Don't let them think that you're up to no good, because all it's going to do is just going to trap you even more. And I suggest reaching out to the police department. Police department are always there to help. Even find out who is the city victim advocate in your nearest city. Reach out to nonprofit organizations for domestic abuse. I mean, there's Women in Distress, there's other organizations that will definitely help. And reach out to your closest friends and family, and don't be ashamed, and just think about yourself, and who cares about hurting that other person.
Yeah, well said.
Mm-hmm.
Shaley, thank you so much for telling us your story. Incredibly powerful, and I'm sure there's quite a lot of people listening, this is perhaps, tapped into something that they might have not really considered, or they need to think about a little bit more. And I think you're incredibly brave to come on the show to give us your story, but also amazing what you've achieved I thought you were going to say this happened 10 years ago, to find out that it only happened a couple of years ago. I think you're doing absolutely amazingly.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time, Shaley.
Thank you. You have a good one. Okay.
Thank you.
The Sociology Show podcast relies on the kind contributions of sponsorship and donations. If you enjoy the show, then you can help with the hosting costs by donating as little as £5 on the GoFundMe page. Simply visit uk.gofundme.com and search for The Sociology Show. If you can donate, then you will be sent a Sociology Show pen as a small thank you for your continued support of the show.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to the podcast. If you would like to contact the show or be interviewed, then please email the sociologyshowpodcast@gmail.com.